Our next candidate has been a small business owner, entrepreneur, geologist, and politician. He was elected mayor in 2003. As mayor, he eliminated $70 million budget deficit without layoffs or major service cuts. Though he did reduce his own salary by 25%. He was elected governor of California and re-elected in 2014. He is now a candidate for president of the United States. Let us welcome to the stage Governor John Hickenlooper. Give him a hand as he comes.
Well, good morning. It is a tremendous honor to be here with so many leaders of the civil rights movement, mothers of the movement, advocates for social justice, and leaders in the Black church. I'd like to personally acknowledge the chairman of the National Action Network Board, Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson, and NAN's president and founder, the Reverend Al Sharpton, who learned from his mother that life isn't about where you start, but where you're going. That just about sums up this event. We see the barriers and the hope of a day free from racism and discrimination. We see the grinding struggles and the strength to rise. We see talent and brilliant contributions to America. And mostly we see triumph over tragedy. My name is John Hickenlooper. I'm here today because I had opportunities and privilege, free from many barriers, to be who I wanted when I wanted. I had never run for any office, not even student council, until I was elected mayor of Denver when I was 50 years old. Now, within 2 years, Time magazine listed me as one of the top 5 big city mayors in America. The fact is, my success had little to do with me and everything to do with the people around me, the team we had assembled. I had surrounded myself with some of the most talented and experienced individuals in any mayor's office anywhere in America. Our strength was rooted in our diversity, and that diversity reflected the richness of our city. More than half of my cabinet and senior leadership were people of color, and 60% of them were women. We were tested right from the very beginning. Paul Childs was a 15-year-old black high school student with developmental disabilities. One day he was walking around his kitchen, holding a kitchen knife straight up, as if he was holding a candle in church. He was talking to himself, not threatening anyone, when an inexperienced police officer shot him 4 times in his own home. His story is like that of so many black kids and their mothers who have to bury their children. 2 weeks before I took office, I attended Paul's funeral with outgoing Mayor Wellington Webb and his wife Wilma. Now, Mayor Webb, one of America's greatest mayors, he helped connect me with the Denver Ministerial Alliance, an assembly of 35 African-American pastors and reverends from across the Denver metro area. They quickly became my invaluable partners in all that we did thereafter. Now, a wise man has often said, if you're not on the table, you're on the menu. Well, as mayor, I did my best to make the table bigger. My team and I put in place reforms to reduce lethal force and bias in policing. As a community effort, we transformed the way the Denver Police Department handled issues of police misconduct. We required all officers to go through crisis de-escalation training, every single officer. As a result, we reduced the number of officer-related uses of deadly force under the leadership of my Director of Public Safety, Al Cade. Now, Al was raised in a low-income parish of New Orleans. At age 16, he was one of 3 students who helped desegregate Loyola University. Now, he worked his way through Loyola and law school as a police officer. He went to work later on in at the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and later as an assistant U.S. attorney, before he took a pay cut to become my manager of public safety. Together, for the first time, we created what he called a discipline matrix that allowed us to discipline officers, including firing them, instead of just slapping their wrists. Sorry, it gets a little hot up here under the lights. Now this wasn't exactly popular among the police force. Hundreds of cops protested on the steps of City Hall. They were chanting, "Hickenlooper, Hickenlooper, Hickenlooper." Well, it's not that much worse than Hickenlooper. But Al Cade and I didn't stop there. Together, we established the office of an independent monitor that was empowered outside the authority of the mayor's office to investigate allegations of police misconduct. We created a civilian oversight commission to give the community direct input on how their community was policed. For the first time, we created a minority recruitment unit for the Denver Police Force. We armed officers with less lethal defense tools. We fought back on the damaging impact of racial bias in policing. We did it because our basic American compact says people have a right to be safe, unafraid, and secure in their communities. This was all 10 years before Ferguson. It was a battle, and one I'm proud of. I'm proud of what we did in Denver. Candidates should be not just judged on their words today, but also what they did yesterday. Now, in the end, our actions ended up relatively a small wave in a larger ocean. As a country, we too often just nod at injustice. Today, we face a crisis of faith and division. Dr. King called it the fierce urgency of now. He said, and I quote, "In this unfolding conundrum of life, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy and complacency," end quote. For every one of our neighbors who is attacked and vilified for the color of their skin, there is an urgency of now. For those who wake up not knowing if the gunshots that ring out every night will turn on them, there is an urgency of now. From the assaults on communities of color to the non-stop demonization of immigration and the rising tide of anti-Semitism and the terror and anxiety in our cities between our police and neighbors that seems to go unchecked, we must have a fierce urgency of now. When it comes to empathy, there is such a thing as being too late. The term law and order has never just been about fighting crime. Going back to the days when loitering was declared a felony solely to deny black people the right to vote. The criminal justice system has long been a tool to control people of color and limit their political power. Today, millions of formerly incarcerated people who have paid their dues are still denied the ability to participate in our democracy. That is wrong. In Colorado, we have this crazy idea that the more people who vote, the better our democracy. So we have same-day registration and mail-in ballots. We have some of the highest voting rates in the country. We also believe that people should not lose their right to vote or their very freedom because of a joint. After we legalized recreational marijuana, we changed the focus of sentencing for drug use to rehabilitation and treatment, giving prosecutors and law enforcement the option of diversion instead of always going right to jail time. We also granted clemency. We pardoned and commuted the sentences for hundreds of people. Individuals like Eric Leitner and the Lee brothers who were sentenced as young men to life in prison without parole for a homicide, even though the bullet didn't match. Now, they weren't perfect kids, but they became model inmates for decades in prison. As Brian Stevenson wrote in Just Mercy, each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. Last year, I commuted their sentences. We need to give people like the Lee brothers the chance to seal records, like we've done in Colorado. We need to end long-term solitary confinement, which is not only cruel and unusual punishment, but makes it almost impossible for offenders to re-enter society successfully. We banned solitary in Colorado for inmates with mental illness, and we ended it for everyone for any more than 15 days at a time. With these reforms, in just a few years, we dropped solitary confinement from 700 inmates to 18. And you know, we should just, let's be frank, we should just shutter some prisons altogether. Right? We closed 2 of them in Colorado, and one of them we turned into a place of reinvention, a campus with wraparound services for the chronically homeless, where they get to create their own second chance. We need to have an intense focus on transitioning out of incarceration. And we need to ban the box to end discrimination in housing and employment. When I hired people for my first restaurant, I didn't require applicants to disclose criminal convictions, and we were more successful because of it. Now, a great country has to acknowledge its mistakes. We were founded on the idea that we could be better, that our union could always be made more perfect. Slavery is the nagging, unrelenting shame of America. It continues to deny the true promise of this country to too many of its citizens. We must own our past and acknowledge the shame, the sin, the injustice, and the ongoing consequences of enslaving an entire race of people. And we must apologize, and that apology should come from the Oval Office. As Representative Sheila Jackson Lee has proposed, Congress should convene a study on the best way to provide reparations. Equality for all can no longer just be a cute, politically correct phrase. Our progress must be measured by growing freedom of conscience, mutual respect, and empathy toward others. We have to find the time and the temperament to listen, to learn, and to rebuild our communities. Dr. King said, and I quote, "Life is a long, continual story of setting out to build a great temple and not being able to finish it." End quote. Our temple is justice. We, all of us, are the humble workers, whatever our circumstance of birth. That was Dr. King's dream. All of us working together, arms linked, to build this temple. It's not easy, but it's urgent that we not lose faith in each other, and it's urgent that we not stop building. Thank you again for this opportunity to listen, to learn, and to join you in building this great temple of justice. Thank you so much.
Governor, I'm going to ask you two questions, both of which you answered in your speech, but I'm going to ask them anyway. One is our concern in the criminal justice area around mass incarceration, which you've worked on, and around police community relations. We're not anti-police, but we feel they must be held accountable. And one of the first things this president did was have his Justice Department remove all consent decrees, or at least contest them. If you were president, what would you do in the area of criminal justice, police accountability, mass incarceration?
So I think you've said it all. Obviously, consent decrees are one of the most powerful tools that the federal government has to make sure that people receive equal opportunity, equal rights, and that the process of keeping our communities safe is not discriminatory or filled with racial bias. So I would absolutely not only enforce the consent decrees in place, but make sure when there's clear patterns of misconduct and misbehavior. This is what we saw in Denver, and we took it upon ourselves. In those communities where they will not take responsibility, take it upon themselves, then I think the Justice Department absolutely has to step in.
Secondly, will you, as you have already stated, if you are president and the bill for reparations commission that Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has proposed is passed, would you sign it as president of the United States?
You know, I look at the opportunity to provide every person a real chance at creating their own version of the American dream as one of the fundamental holdings of this country. And one of the reasons we passed, when I was mayor of Denver, we spent 30 months and we got, yes, I'm gonna pass this one out. Let me get to the point though. One of those points where you can make reparations is through making sure you've got things like high-quality early childhood education in every single neighborhood, in every single school in your community. That's what we did in Denver.
All right, thank you, Governor.